Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Aging Experts. I'm one of your hosts here. My name is Barbara Ellison, and I am on a mission to make happiness the norm rather than the exception, especially for those of us that are in the better half of our lives. And anyways, and I am so excited. I have my wonderful co-host here, Carol Henderson. I already tell you about it, but she's going to tell you about her. But we also have an amazing guest. So we are going to be hearing about all the things that she does to make a difference. So, Carol, how are you?
I'm doing great today and
Cool.
loving life. We're having a sunny day today after lots and
Yes.
lots of clouds, and I miss the snow. But some people in my state are iced in big
Yeah.
time and having lots of issues there. But Megan and I are up in the Panhandle, and so I know her in real life, and she is the most amazing person. She has such a history, such a legacy already. And I'm excited for her to tell us some of the places she's been, what she's done, and how she has changed her life fairly recently to do new things. So,
Yeah. And
um,
it's never too old to do new things.
yes,
We are never too old to do new
yeah.
things.
And on this show, as y'all know, we talk about spiral up, don't spiral down. Watch the words of your mouth because you've got 3 point something trillion cells that are eavesdropping on every thought, let alone every word. And they're trying to make those things come to pass. And that's just how we're made. But Megan has such a great story. And I want to kind of throw it to her and let her just kind of tell us where she's come from and what she's done in the past.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Carol and Barbara, for having me on your show. I am honored to be here. So excited to be with anybody who's watching as well. And I love people. So if it were in person, I would be super excited to get to see you eyeball to eyeball. But I'm glad to be here and share just a little bit about maybe some of the things that have been going on in my life. And I have begun again. And I at the age of 40, I was prompted to start again on another new career and thought, you've got to be kidding me. Like,
Well, tell us where you've come from and just a nutshell of some of the things you've done in the past, because
sure.
she's got quite a legacy there.
Oh, well, I guess the most important thing that I should share first is that I have a husband of 16 years whose name is Brandon that I love with all my heart, and we have two beautiful little girls, Evie and Claire. And kind of my background is I graduated with a bachelor's in business administration. Started working straight in the financial planning career. Got all my licenses. I did financial planning for about 7 years straight out of college. Loved doing that. But somewhere in the middle of that, really met Jesus in my finances, in our finances, and radically shifted into saying, Lord, I see so many people that are hurting in the area of finances. And
Mhm.
if I'm going to do something in this way, can I do it for the kingdom of heaven? And so he moved me into transition. One of our transitions was moving
Number
me
one.
number one was moving me from financial planning into a director of stewardship at a church here in Amarillo, Texas. And I soon became a pastor of that stewardship ministry area. And I did that for 7 years. And I thought, this is it. Like, this is my career and this is going to be the path. And then, move number two, the Lord said, actually, no, it's not. And so in 2017, we had yet another transition. And so the Lord asked us to literally give up our job, change churches, move houses. We just had this
Mm.
massive transition. And that was in 2017. And then I started doing generosity consulting. He had an idea of what we were going to do. So I started doing generosity consulting at 35 and loved it. Kind of helped build out a sales team, a sales department, built out a coaching and consulting leg that took some software application and applied strategy to it, and was loving that. Like, this is what I think I'm supposed to do. But about a year ago or so, I felt stuck. Like, I thought this was what I was supposed to be doing with my life, but I really just feel stuck. And so the Lord started asking me if I would be willing to get unstuck. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew, like, and I thought, well, but you can unstick anything, like,
Right.
of course you can unstick anything. And maybe the unsticking isn't me. I thought that the unsticking needed to be my husband. Like, he's the one, like every good woman, right? Like when the Lord's telling us that something inside of us might need to change, I'm always like, oh, it must be that man that you've given me.
So hold on just a second on that. Go back to when you made this last one, when you had to give up your home and your job and your church and all of that. Was that easy?
Oh, God, no. No, it was really probably one of the most darkest seasons of my life. And it felt like walking through the valley of the shadow of death. But we knew that the Lord was asking us to give up in order to gain. And the easy things were that our girls were really little. They were 2 and 4. And I knew that I wanted to be with them more. And so the easy part was knowing that even though we were giving some things up, the gain was going to be
Mm-hmm.
that I'd have the opportunity to be at home with my girls when they were little, in a more
Right.
meaningful way. So it wasn't easy, like giving up income, giving up a home that I loved, like really loved, in a neighborhood that I really loved, and giving up our church that had been 15 years of our lives, where we had grown and, just we had become who we were because of the church that we were planted in. But
Well, and I remember the first time I saw you over at Messiah's house, and I'm like,
why is she here?
because you were so planted at the
Mhm,
other place.
mhm.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Carol, like I think about that because I always, when I was so planted at the other place, people would leave and they would go other places, and I would think, like, why are you leaving? Like, why would you leave? And I would ask them sometimes. I'd say, how come you're not here anymore? And they'd say, well, God said that I needed to move. And I thought,
Right.
that's a bunch of hogwash, but it's not. Like, he sometimes tells you it's time for you to
Mm-hmm.
grow. Like, when you get comfortable, it's time for you to grow. And when for me, it's like a potted plant syndrome is what he started showing me. Like, you grow to the size of the pot that you're planted in, and
Right.
then it's time to you're either at a season in your life where he says, okay, and now you need to, like, pour off seeds into other people, or you're not through growing, I need to transplant you into another pot. And
Right.
I think that's just, for me, that's the way that he's done it. And every time that I've gotten to the point of where I'm like, I'm done growing, he's like, okay,
Oh
well,
yeah.
to move again.
No,
Yes. Yeah.
here's the next stage. That's
Yeah.
what he's done with me on so many occasions. It's
Well,
like,
and
well,
with
you think you're
keeping me
done, but
too.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that any that Megan's a church hopper. It wasn't like, oh, I don't like this
No.
word, I'm gonna go over here. Oh, I don't like that sermon. Oh, we're not at all advocating something like church hopping, job hopping, spouse hopping, any of those things. Uh, but there are times, I mean,
Right.
God's keeping me around over the years. So,
Right.
so yeah, okay. So now we can go to you. I just wanted to hone in on that a little bit because people think they look at us from the outside and they see these changes and they think, oh, it was easy.
Yeah,
But what
it
I'm going through is hard. But oh, what they're doing is easy because we do have the joy of the Lord, but it doesn't always mean that we're excited about what we're
no,
doing, and not that we're not excited or don't love it, but the change can be hard.
It's change can be. It's like some of the changes that I've had in the last 11 years. It's like, whoa, really? You want me to do what? Yeah.
Yes,
You
exactly.
want me to do what? And
Well, and
like,
at the
okay.
time when we moved, we had just finished remodeling the house that we
Oh,
lived in. And so it was
yeah.
perfect and I loved it. And I had, we had remodeled it and we had done a bunch of stuff. And the home that we moved into, uh, it, everything needed to be redone. And so, but we bought, it's on a street called Moorgate. And the Lord just, he was so clear about like, hey, this is going to open more gates for you. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just really prophetic in the way that he speaks to you and the things that he does. And Brandon was born in 1980 and I was born in 1982. And I remember Brandon wanting to look at the house that we live in now. And he said, you're not going to want to look at it. It needs to be completely redone. And I was like, no, I'm not redoing another house. Like, that's not going to happen. But when we walked in, I was like, oh, I think this is our house. And as we started talking to the realtor at the time, he said, well, this house was, it was founded in 1980 and it was established in 1982 is when it was built. And the Lord just started saying like, Meagan, I had planned you and Brandon from the beginning. And I established you in 1980 and I built you in 1982. And so he just started like giving just prophetic things to make that transition okay. When the Lord, when you're so desperate to hear the Lord, and then he gives you these glimpses of hope that make you realize, all right, you have something more for me and you have something better and it's going to be okay. And I needed to be rebuilt at that time. We needed to remodel. Like my heart needed a remodeling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it needed a restoration. And so as we have gone through like restoring the home that we're in, the physical home, he has gone through and restoring the home in my heart to make all things new inside of it. And so that's, beginning again is not always fun, but it can be if we
Yeah.
realize
Well, and the thing is, it's when we moved here to the lake, we had our house that we'd raised the boys in, and it was in Paramount, which is a nice little neighborhood. And it was a roomy house. We loved it. We had also remodeled it. It was just how we wanted it. And God told us to move up here. And Keith had retired or he he retired on full disability because of the broken back and stuff. But literally, I think for 1 or 2 years, when I would drive by our house, I would cry. We mourned having to do that, but we knew it was God. We knew, and it was 2.5 blocks from my house, my office, a brick and mortar office. And so I tell people we moved up here to simplify our lives, and I ended up doing 100-mile commute every day.
yeah.
So, but
I get that, Carol. Like we literally just moved one neighborhood over, and so I still drive by my old house, all the time. And it took a long time for me to be like okay with
yeah,
that.
it took me a while to be okay with that. I'm okay now,
Mhm.
but it was hard, and yet we knew it was God.
Yeah,
We knew it was God, and we were
yeah,
trusting Him. But oh, it was hard.
yeah. And I know that the most recent season that we're in too, it's just this time around it's not the first time that we've had to give up. It's not the first time we've had to lay down. It's not the first time that we've had to lose an income, willingly lose an income. I mean, so it was my income this last time, and then again recently. But when Brandon and I were first married, he gave up his income to pursue a dream that we felt like. And everything that we've had to lay down, we've consistently had to trust God to be our provider. And
Right.
and that's been a beautiful thing, but it's not easy either. We're carnal and we're flesh. And
Yeah.
even with what I did for the past 12 years of my life with studying, there's over 2,000 scriptures about stewardship and generosity and wealth and money and, the Bible. And finally, the Lord just was like, you're either going to believe these things for your life, Meagan Brown, or you're not. And that's just where we're at, is saying like, no, we believe you. Like,
Yes.
we believe you. So,
Okay, so the journey you're on now. Let's wrap this up and put a bow on it so people aren't thinking, oh, she's just left out in the cold. We don't know where she is.
yeah, well, so this most recent journey, I really felt like the career path that I was on and all the changes that had been made in the past 5 years, they were just lovely. Like, I really loved a lot of the things that had transitioned, and doing consulting and generosity and getting to meet with church executive boards and doing presentations. It was everything that I had loved, but my heart I just wasn't like, I just felt stuck. And so I prayed about it last December and just told the Lord, like, I feel like I'm stuck and I don't know what to do about where I'm at. And I had a dream in the first part of January that in my dream, I literally was stuck in quicksand. And so I'm standing in the middle of quicksand in my dream, and my sister is above me in this like swamp, and she's in the quicksand too. But she was able to get out. So I said, hey, Amanda, go get help. And she just steps out and she leaves to go get help. And all of a sudden, this horse comes galloping in, and he jumps into the swamp. And I'm up to about my knees, and he pulls up on the wrong side of me. So most of the time, you would mount a horse from your right hand side, but he pulled up on my left hand side. And I looked at this horse in my dream like, I can't get on you. And the horse looked at me like, I don't really care. Like, you can get on or you can stay stuck. It's your call. So finally I chose to get on the horse in my dream. And then I knew that he was looking at me with his eyes to say like, pull my mane and let's go. And so I did, and he got me unstuck. And I also knew that in that dream that the horse's name was King, and I knew that he was the sheriff of all of the land. So he was in charge. And I woke up in real life and started like studying the dream and finding the interpretation of the dream and seeking the Lord about that. And 2 days after the dream, I knew that the horse was a specific horse. And my girls were on Christmas vacation, and we were watching a movie called Spirit Untamed, and that was the horse. And so I knew that it was the king of the land. It was Jesus, and it was the Holy Spirit who were going to get me unstuck if I was willing to do things differently. And so that started my journey. And then a couple of nights later, I had another dream. And in that dream, I was in a car, a really fast silver sports car, and my dad was driving the car, and we were headed westbound on I-40, and we were going pretty fast. And he looked over at me, and I saw like a dead halt of cars, just tons and tons of cars piled up on I-40, and he was not slowing down. And he looked over at me and just said, Maggie, are you buckled up? And I said, uh-huh. And he said, are you ready to go? And I went, okay. And he pushed me back in the dream and downshifted and gunned it. And I thought we were going to run into all of these cars. And I'm like, like, oh my gosh, we're going to die. And out of nowhere, a highway appeared, and he took the shoulder to get onto the highway. And we're still going like 100 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden, I look over to the left in my dream, and he starts slowing down, and there's just like one or two cars on the highway. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm catching my breath, and I look at him and I say, do we need to get back on the highway? And he just said, no, we're not going that way. We're not going to get stuck. And so I woke up from that dream, and it just propelled me like, God, you have something for me. you have something that that I'm supposed to do. You have something that's next. Obviously, this is your idea, not my idea, because you're the one driving the car. So this is your ministry. You just want me to be a passenger in it, and we're going to get unstuck. And so I went down this process, and I had a really good friend give me the book Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. I personally made sure I had it out to talk about it. It's awesome. And the beginning chapter just starts talking about a pruning process and how we have to prune things that are dead in our life, get them off. We have to prune things that are sick, that are never going to get any better. And then we have to prune things that are good, but they're not the best for our life. And I knew that God was asking me to lay down that which had been really good in this career that I loved and had found contentment in and satisfaction in, and maybe even felt really honored to be a part of. But I felt like he was like, this has been really good, but I have more for you. And it's not the best for your life. And are you willing to let that go? And so I said, yes, I am willing to do whatever you want me to do. You know, I love you, Lord. And it's painful because it's painful, right? So we just started pressing on a lot of different doors, and we knew that the Lord, I felt very clear that the Lord said, I want you and Brandon to begin to start walking in a business together in the future. And so my husband's been in commercial real estate property management for the past almost 10 years. And we just knew that he was asking me to move into that type of a career, which was not anything that I've ever thought that I wanted to do. But I am eager to do whatever the Lord wants me to do. And so I went about my journey to say, okay, I'll take an investment class. And then I took my licensing classes, which was 180 hours, and I have test anxiety, but I took the test and I passed the test. Praise the Lord. And thank God it was all him and his grace. And I did all of that in probably about 3 months. So from start to finish. And so God's grace has been absolutely on this process. And right now I'm just kind of waiting for the state of Texas to release my license and believing that the Lord has favor. I laid down my career. So last Friday was my last day at the company I've been with for the past 5 years, and have a new CEO right now. His name is Jesus. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Wow.
Cool.
Wow. And this is so exciting because so many people think, oh, well, I'm 30 or I'm 40 or I'm 50 or I'm 60, and it's too late to start over. I mean, Barbara and I started these podcasts just a little over a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
And, this was something that people had been telling both of us we needed to do to reach
Years.
somehow. And then finally we kind of looked at each other one morning when we were in our mastermind class, and I'll do it if you'll do it. Well, I'll do it if you'll do it. And so here we are. And now we have 3 podcasts, and shameless plug, we're starting another channel that's totally separate, that is interviewing people about their nutrition and wellness
Their wellness journey.
what we do. And so we're very excited about that. But, I mean, I want to say it's never too late to start, especially if you're following God. He's not going to leave you in that pot. There are people that are supposed to stay there because, like Meagan was saying, they're giving out. They're pouring out. But if all you're doing is pouring in and you don't have an out, you get stagnant.
Mhm.
A lake, even though the river's pulling into it, there's an outlet there. If not, it turns into a stagnant pond. And so if you're feeling stuck or stagnant, get that book. I wrote it down because I can't wait to get it and read it. And stuff.
That's right. He's going to ask you to end something.
And I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. Well, and Keith and I are at a place that we know there's a change coming. We've known it for years, but it's like feeling closer and closer and closer. So, yeah, we know that it's coming up. So it may be time to read that book. So, any last words, Barbara?
I think just don't be afraid of change.
Mhm.
I think so many people get into their mindset that, oh, I can't do that. I'm too old, or I'm too
hard,
set, or it's too hard. Don't ever be afraid of change.
Yeah.
I said change really is the only constant that there is in life.
Correct. And I think that was one of the fantastic things about that book, but really to bring it to Jesus and give him the glory.
Right.
He's the one who says in the book of Isaiah that he will spring forth a new thing, or that he will make a river in the desert, or he's always interested.
He knows the plans that he has for us.
Amen. Yes. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Meagan. This has been so fun. And I really, really appreciate you coming on and, telling our viewers how wonderful Jesus is, but also to not be afraid of change. Don't spend your life sick, tired, sitting on the sofa watching soap operas and eating bonbons, because there's so much more to life.
Right. And I think for me too, is that you don't want to look back on your life and go, oh, I should have. Right. I should have done that.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. No matter what anybody says. Just do it.
Yeah.
And if you are called to do something new, then do it.
Yes. If not now, then when? If not us, then who? Right?
Then who? Right. And the other thing is a train that's stopped on the track. A piece of wood can keep it from moving. But if that train's moving, it can bust through big old blockbuster piles of wood and keep going. And a car, all of us mostly have driven a car, and think how hard it is to turn the steering wheel when you're sitting in a parking lot still. But even just a little movement makes it easier to steer. So if you don't know what to do, start something and God will guide you as long as you're asking.
Take the first step.
Yeah, take the step, and he'll move you into what he wants you to do. So don't be afraid of the hard parts, because it is well worth it.
For such a time as this. That's why we're here.
Circle up.
Circle up.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. See you next time.